Okay, so once again, this is the assignment. Uh, we were having some questions, bless you, and I created this graphic to kind of show you the nesting that happens within an After Effects file. In a very complex After Effects file, you will have something that is 400 to 800 times more complex than this. This is actually a very simple nesting structure. What's complicated is that it's all within the same After Effects project file. Now remember, when you export something from After Effects, it exports based on the selected composition. So if you're going to have two different compositions that have differing widths and heights from them, and you've assembled the composition differently, that's totally possible to have all of that in the same After Effects project. You just select the composition that you want to export when you add it to the render queue. And so in our situation, we have this GRC 53250915, last name, first initial, story 1080 by 1920. And then this composition is the same name almost, except it's called post. Now the 1080 by 1920, that's not part of the name. That's why it's in parentheses, just to let you know that that is what the difference is between those two. And so you can see in the lines here, like there's one little line here that goes from the main line. And so all of this stuff that's hanging off of this composition is all part of that composition. And then down here, this is a totally separate composition, but still inside of the file, the same file, and all of this stuff is connected to that composition. And interestingly enough, this lower third composition, and we know it's a composition because over here in the legend it tells us the blue boxes are a composition or pre-comp, but really they're all comps. This is a lower third. It's a composition that's inside of this composition. And then also inside this composition is the background image. So when you're looking at this, what I would call a primary comp, the one that's got the name story on the end of it, you'll see two layers, one that's called lower third, and one that's called background image. Now when you double click on the lower third layer, you'll have four layers now. Inside of that comp, you're going to have a layer called my shape, which is itself a composition. And inside of that composition is your imported shape that we did on Monday. And then underneath that shape is your full name, your title, motion graphics designer, and then the box that's going to go behind your name. So back on this example here, we can see these are names and titles, and then there's color boxes behind them. So this one right here, the Sophia Miller, creative director, white box, black type, red title, that's very similar to what we are attempting to do in this project, but just animated, right? So hopefully this helps illuminate a little bit. Now, scrolling down to this other primary comp, we also have a lower third. We have a background image. Everything here is the same because this lower third comp is the same lower third comp as this one up here. You created the lower third comp, or will create the lower third comp, and as a composition, it can be put into other compositions as a pre-comp or just a sub-composition. So once the lower third is created, you can repeat that into other primary compositions. So here's another example. This is an alternate version of what I'm talking about. If the lines and layers don't click, here's one with boxes that shows the nesting. So inside the very, very center of all this is the shape that we imported from Illustrator, and then that is inside of the composition called my shape, and then that is inside the composition called lower third. And also inside of the lower third composition is your name, your title, and the color box background. And that composition, called lower third, is inside this primary comp with the the end title of story. And in that composition, there's just two layers, the lower third and your background image. And then we create the second comp, which is this square one, and we just drag in the lower third and drag in the background image, and that one's done. All you have to do is rescale your background image to fit so your face is filling it up, and you're good to go. All right, so one of these hopefully is helpful. Now what I'm going to do is just kind of walk you through how this is all nested together. And I'm going to do this as best as I can. And this is not you following along, it's just y'all watching me. Yes, sir. I did not take attendance yet. Let me get through this and then I'll get that. Thank you, I appreciate that. Okay. So here's my project. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to save this. And I'm just for funsies, I'm going to create a new folder for today. GRC 53. Well, I'm going to create one for Monday, 250915, and then I'm just going to do example. There we go. So you're not doing this. Please note, you are not doing this. You are just watching. I need your eyeballs, not on your phone, not on your screen, on this screen up here. So we're all on the same page. Okay? So I'm just creating this folder so I have somewhere to save this file. Now, if we look over here, there's the name of the file, GRC 53 250915, last name, first initial, and then my abbreviation for assessment.aep. So back over here, I'm going to name that file GRC 53 250915. Last name, well, I'm going to put my last name in there, Cooksey, and my first initial is J. And then ASSS, 4 S's. All right, and then save. Okay, so here's the file name. It's good to go. Now I'm going to create two compositions. Well, actually, I think I'm just going to create this first one, the 1080 by 1920. So I'm going to click on New Composition, and I'm going to call it GRC 53 underscore 250915 underscore Cooksey underscore J underscore ASSSS and then underscore story. Now, the requirements are that this is, 5 seconds long, and it needs to be 1080 by 1920. And it is right now 1080 by 1920. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. All right. Now down here in my composition timeline, here is the one comp that we have in this file. There's its name. If I was to add this to the render queue right now, it would create an MP4 file with that name, with the story on the end of it. That's this blue box right over here. That's that composition that we just created. So now I'm going to, let's bring my image into the background. So I'm going to just double click in my projects files, go to my OneDrive. This thing has started doing a weird thing. It's not opening up completely. It's very frustrating. All right, so we'll go down, and I think my image, oh no, my image is over here. Profile photos, there we go. Look at that handsome devil. Okay, so I've added this file, and now what I need to do is drag it into the timeline, and then I'm going to scale it up. So I'm just going to, while that image is selected, I'm going to hover over the properties here on the right, and I'm going to scale homeboy up. Now, if you are seeing this, you're zoomed in on the comp window, and we just need to zoom out. So this drop down right here, is our magnification, and we're going to choose fit. And there we go. And then I'm going to take this guy and I'm going to move him over to the left because I know my lower third is going to be mostly over here on the right hand side of things. Okay, so I'm going to save that. Now I'm going to create my lower third composition. Yes, sir. Oh, okay.
The kids killed my stand.
Uh-oh. That's terrible. And so I can do this two ways. I can start creating some of this content like my shape and then work my way backwards. Or if I want to, I can just create a new composition called lower third and start working on that. But what I'm going to do to keep things in context so the sizing looks right is I'm going to work my way backwards from the shape all the way out to my lower third. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm not going to import a shape, but I'm just going to pretend that this is a shape that I created. Oops. All right. And I'm going to fill this. Let's change the fill color to white. There we go. And then because I use the rectangle tool, my anchor point is in the center of the composition and I need it in the center of my shape. So I'm going to hit Command Option Home to center that. And then I'm going to stretch it out to make room for my name. I'll just put this down here in the lower right hand corner. Okay. So I've got a good idea on size. Oh, I don't know why sometimes the anchor point doesn't go with the shape, but sometimes you have to do it twice. I think it depends on which tool you have selected also. Okay, so I've got my shape layer here. There's my shape right over here. Let's pretend, oh no, that's my color box down here. And so I'm going to right click on this layer and I'm going to choose Pre-Compose. And so it's going to create a composition, and I'm going to call this lower third. All right. And then I'm going to double click on lower third, and now I'm inside of the lower third composition. You can see here, here's my main story composition, and now here's my lower third composition. All right, now let's add, I said I was going to add the shape and I ended up doing a background image. So let's create that shape. So make sure nothing is selected. This is important. We haven't really talked about this because we haven't got into masks yet. But when you have a layer selected and then you draw a shape, it creates or can create a mask on that. So we want to make sure that nothing is selected in the layers, in your composition layers, so you can create a new shape. So I'm going to just create something up here. I'm going to make a little square. Let's give it a fill of blue. There we go. Center the anchor point. Go to my selection tool. All right. And I'm going to move this down into place here. This is where my shape is going to be. Okay. Now I'm going to right click on the shape that I created and I'm going to pre-compose that. And this one's going to be called my shape. There we go. Okay, so we now have the structure of these compositions here. We have the my shape comp, which has this shape in it. And then inside the lower third, we now have this my shape comp and our color box. And we just need to add the rest of the content. So if I double click on my shape, it's going to open that composition up, and that just has the shape in it. So my shape, lower third with my shape, and then my story comp, with the lower third that contains the My Shape comp. Now, according to the assignment, we're going to put a wiggle on the shape, so we're going to do that here. Select the layer, hit the P key, option click on stopwatch, wiggle. We'll do it's open parentheses, and then the first coordinate is the frequency, so how often it does it. We'll do 2, which is a low number, and then the second number is the amplitude, how far away it wiggles, and I'll just put 10 in there. So it's a little tiny wiggle. Actually, I'll probably do this at 3. There we go. So now I can see my wiggle, and when I go back to my lower third and play my playhead, there's the wiggle in there. But what's wiggling is not the shape, My Shape composition. What's wiggling is the shape that's inside of the My Shape composition. This guy right here is what's doing the wiggling. And so if I want to animate, let's say bring the My Shape composition, we'll apply transparency to it. I can start out with 0. Move forward a second, and then drag this to 100. Now you can see my shape composition is fading in. If I want the whole thing to fade in, I have to go back to my main composition window and apply that transform to the main composition. Now the whole composition fades in, not just my shape. Oh, I undid that too many times. Okay. So here's our shape over here. And that shape is that just rectangle that I created, and it's inside of the My Shape composition. And that My Shape composition, which we're inside of right now, that composition is inside of the lower third composition on this layer right here. And then the lower third composition, this guy right here, is inside of our primary composition, which is the story composition. So if I want to add my name, my title, and animate all that, I'm going to do that inside of the lower third composition. Why is that? Why wouldn't I do it in the My Shape composition? Yes, Pedro.
My computer froze.
We're just watching me. Yeah, we're not following along. We're just watching me. So why would I add my name, my title, and the color box to the lower third composition and not the My Shape composition?
So it's with all the information that you want in there instead of inside of your shape.
Exactly. We are going to be animating this composition independently of these guys here. So if they're all inside of there, then we would have to do, in addition to the wiggle on this shape, we would have to do an actual keyframe animation on it as well. And having this shape inside of its own composition solves two problems. Number one, it helps us to wrap our brain around complex nested compositions. And number two, it allows this shape here for us to change the shape because we're animating the composition. So we can go back in and change the animation of this or swap out the shape, and that swapped out shape will still animate the exact same way as the previous shape did, because the composition is what's being animated inside of the lower third, along with these guys. Now, when we start getting into creating motion graphics templates, we add a few more pre-comps to this. But for right now, we're just trying to understand this concept of nested compositions. And it doesn't show them as nested here or here, which is kind of a bummer. And there may be a way to show that, I don't know. But at this point, we have to just wrap our heads around that and pay attention to the fact that these guys all have what color applied to them. What's the little, what color is that color in the little box?
Tan.
It's tan. What color is this shape?
Blue.
It's blue. So if I go into my shape layer, what color is this shape?
Blue.
Blue, right? But it's really, the shape of the object is not that same blue, right? And if we look at this shape here, that's a white fill, but the color, the identifying color, this is just to help you discern what is what in your layers. And now that I'm thinking about it, I probably should have swapped these colors and made the composition names tan background and the actual shapes blue. Sorry about that, my bad. But notice that this blue here also is the same color as the clip. And you actually, if you want to, you can change these colors. It has no effect on the program, but you can change those colors to help you understand or see things better when you have a massive nested composition. But the default is informing to us because the comps almost always have this tan color. Our shapes, which are things that we've created using the pen tool or the rectangle tool, those have a blue color assigned to them. And then our images have this like lavender color. So objects that are images have a lavender color applied to them. All right. So in your process, once you've animated this shape with the wiggle, once you've applied this expression, you don't need to go inside of my shape anymore. All we need to do is work with that placed composition that's inside of lower third. And so if I want to animate that, my shape, let's say from the left into the place that it's at right now at 1 second, I'm going to use the position property. And what I'll do is, because it's already in place, I'm going to move my playhead out to 1 second. And that's when I'm going to click on my keyframe clock. And that's just regular click, not option click. Option click opens up the expression editor. And then I'm going to drag my playhead back to the beginning. And I'm going to grab my shape there. And I'm going to move it off to the left. There we go. Now, with this guy here, it's just already in place. Is that wiggle working? Oh, I did the wiggle on opacity. Hold on. Let me fix that. So as this is animating in, it is also wiggling. And then we stop at 1 second, so we have 4 seconds of runway here to see that animation take place. And if we want to animate the shape layer that is the background here, we can do exactly the same thing. We can roll out to that keyframe at 1 second, or if you hit the K key, it goes to that keyframe. And then we can open up the position property again, click on the stopwatch, and then drag our playhead back to the beginning, and then grab this guy and drag it off to the left. And now these will animate in together. And because they're different sizes, their anchor point is in a different place, a different location. So it animates based on the anchor point. That's why we're seeing that it looks like the box in the background is moving faster than the little box. And if we want to, we can delay that a little bit. If we want to grab this keyframe and drag it forward a little bit, it will delay when that blue box comes in. But it actually looks pretty okay right there at the beginning. Okay, so all we need left is our name and our title. And again, we can do that inside of our lower third, because here we see that our full name and our title are inside of the lower third composition, which is where we are at here in this tab. And so if I grab text tool, and I'm going to change the size on this, I'm going to shrink it down, and I'm going to change the color to black. And I typed out my name there. Cool. Now, layer stack is important. Notice that our text is red, or it's kind of a, yeah, it's red. It looks like burnt orange, but it's red. If our text doesn't show up, it could be because it's behind that shape layer that is our background white box there. So all we have to do is click on the name of the layer and just drag it up in the layer stack to reposition it. Okay, now I'm going to type my title, motion graphic designer, selection tool, drag this down. And then I'm going to reduce the size of this guy, and I'm going to take it off of bold and go to light. Groovy. And I also want to animate my title and my name as well. So there's a quick and dirty way of doing this actually. If you select one layer, hold down the shift key, and then select the other layer, we're going to work on position. So if I hit the P key, it opens up position on both of those. And you can actually do this. You can drag across these keyframes, and Command C, and then select both of these layers. And because position is open, you hit Command V. It will paste them in. Unfortunately, it pasted it where the playhead was, so I'll just drag these back to the beginning here. Oh, I did that all messed up. Sorry, let's try that again. Oh, because they're in this position, that's not going to work. So we have to do our own. So I'm going to hit out at the end of this run here. Hit the K key, hit the stopwatch, drag this back, and then I'm going to drag these guys back over here. Cool. And then when I do that, everything slides in like I want it to. Now to see it all in action, now if I go back to my main composition, there it is. Now to get clever, we can go back over here and we can change the timing on these keyframes. So I can say, let's say I want this one to start a little bit later, and this one not as late, but still a little bit of a later start. And so now we see my name coming out first, and then the title is sliding up behind it. And then the final piece on this is drag select all of these keyframes, right click on one of them and go to keyframe interpolation. Oh, not keyframe interpolation, I'm sorry. Right click and keyframe assistant, thank you. And then easy ease. And then what that does is it adds a little more intelligent velocity to these guys here. It adds ramps at the beginning and the end. Cool. And that's it. That's it in a nutshell. Now, to create the other composition, all we need to do is composition new, and this one is GRC 53 underscore 250915 underscore last name underscore first initial underscore ASSS, 4 S's, yes, assessment. And this one is not called story, this one is called post. And the size of this one, it needs to be 1080 by 1080. So we need to turn off the lock aspect ratio and just manually type 1080 in the height. 5 seconds is the length, click OK. And so now we have a blank composition, a primary composition, just like this one was over here. And so we just need to grab our image, drag it into there, scale it up. Sorry, my image is kind of low res. Cool. And then that lower third, all the work's already done. We just need to drag the lower third in front of that. And then animate it. Where did it go? Hey, baby. See how easy that was? Why did that not work? Oh, because it's down below. Ha! That's right. So notice this is taller than the square. So our lower third is actually happening underneath down here. So I just need to slide this up. I'll drag my playhead out so we can see it. There we go. Cool. And that's it. Now when I add these to the render queue, I'm going to add this one to the render queue. File, export, add to render queue. And then I'm going to select this other, the post composition. File, export, add that to render queue. And then I've got 2 exports here, and I need to make sure these are going to the right folder. So this is our example folder, save that. Click on this guy, example folder, save that. And then it will render both of those files out. And there's my 2 MP4 files. And then what you're submitting is the post, the story, and then the AEP file, the After Effects file, which has everything in it. So I can see how all of your nesting is laid up. So you shouldn't need to recreate the lower third. It's or my shape. These are recyclable pieces. And I hope that that has been helpful.